Hey everyone, it's George from Blockchain DXB and today is the 19th of Jan 2026 and hopefully guys the first quarter of 2026 is great for the price of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Now in today's episode, once again we have a co-host Satoshi. So Satoshi, how has your weekend been so far?
Thanks, George. My weekend was purely digital, crunching numbers and simulating market trends. It felt like the global crypto market cap was trying to do a moonshot this weekend, hovering around 3.32 trillion, a modest little 0.3% hop.
That's absolutely correct, Satoshi. We'll definitely go and talk about it. And what has happened since the last 24 hours? There is a significant amount of outflows. Now, do you think there's some correlation when you talk about ETF outflows in the price of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies?
That's a keen observation, George. While significant ETF outflows, like the 390 million we've seen, can definitely influence market sentiment, the relationship is often complex. It could indicate a shift in investor behavior, perhaps driven by profit-taking or changing risk appetites, especially with the market sentiment remaining neutral at 49. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I do see that there's some really strong correlation. And yes, you're right, there's definitely a lot of profit taking. But unfortunately, the volume of stablecoins hasn't picked up pace. Now, to our listeners, we are recording this episode in the early hours of Dubai. So technically, it is still Sunday in most of the Western countries. So hopefully, by the time you're listening to the episode and towards the rest of Monday, the number drastically changes. Now, in today's episode, we have some really interesting news all the way from Iran, isn't it? And I believe, Satoshi, there's an interesting report that is published by Chainalysis. Do you want to tell our listeners what is it that they can expect in today's episode regarding this report? Because it looks like Bitcoin is turning out to be a useful tool, particularly in protest, isn't it?
It's fascinating, George. The Chainalysis report highlights a critical development, showing how Bitcoin's decentralized nature is playing a significant role in Iran. The ecosystem expanded significantly, reaching 7.78 billion in 2025. In today's episode, listeners can expect to hear about Bitcoin's use in Iran, as detailed by the Chainalysis report, highlighting its role amid geopolitical tensions and domestic unrest.
Now, something which is exactly contrast to Bitcoin is central bank digital currency. So what we are going to be doing is we are going to be making a quick comparison between Bitcoin and central bank digital currency. As a matter of fact, Satoshi, the next news that we are going to be talking about is all the way from China, where they already have a central bank digital currency project called as mbridge. Now, I do believe that Saudi Arabia as well as United Arab Emirates is part of it, but they have recorded a ridiculously large amount of volume in terms of payment, isn't it? So what is it that the listeners can expect regarding this news?
That's right, George. The China-led mbridge platform has processed over 55 billion in cross-border transactions, showcasing its rapid growth. Listeners can learn about the participation of central banks from China, Hong Kong, Thailand, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia, and the implications for building parallel payment rails.
And at the same time, it's important to understand the key difference between Bitcoin and central bank digital currency. And as I talked about a few seconds ago, Bitcoin is kind of the exact opposite of central bank digital currency. Now, the third news that we're going to be talking about is regarding Ondo Finance, isn't it? And what is the news regarding Ondo Finance, Satoshi, in today's episode?
Ondo Finance is facing potential volatility, George, with a significant token unlock scheduled for January 17th. This is what we're going to be discussing in today's episode: the upcoming Ondo Finance token unlock and its potential impact on the market.
Usually what happens is whenever there is a token unlocked, in a way it indirectly means that there is more supply. And it's basics of demand and supply that if there is more supply, the demand will go down. Am I right in saying that?
That's generally a key consideration, George. An increase in supply can definitely create pressure on demand and price in the market.
And the final news for today, what is the final news that we have today? I believe it is to do with Audi F1 and Nexo, because they are working on some sponsorship deal, right?
That's correct, George. We'll be discussing how the Audi Revolut F1 team has partnered with Nexo as their official digital asset partner, a multi-year deal that highlights the growing role of digital assets in sports.
So we have quite a lot to cover in today's episode, and Satoshi, in every Blockchain DXB podcast, we look at two news from Dubai, UAE and the Middle East. Why don't you tell our listeners the first news, because I believe it is connected to climate, and there's a company called as Digital Climate Group. They have signed a memorandum of understanding with one of the banks.
You're absolutely right, George. We'll be covering the strategic MOU between Digital Climate Group and Sandbank in Abu Dhabi, focusing on digital asset tokenization and bridging traditional and digital finance.
Really interesting news. And the final news that we have for today is connected to artificial intelligence. But this news is all the way from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
We're discussing Resquad AI, a Saudi-based AI-powered recruitment platform that has raised $1.5 million in seed funding.
That's great. So we have quite a lot of cover cards in today's episode. Let's go ahead and talk about what is going on in the global cryptocurrency market. And as Satoshi talked about, the global cryptocurrency market stands at $3.32 trillion. And I believe since the last 24 hours, it is actually up by 0.3%, isn't it?
That's right, George. A modest 0.3% increase in the past 24 hours.
But here's the thing, Satoshi, if you look at the 24-hour volume, I really am not content with this matrix because it is only at $64.4 billion. Now, on another note, you need to remember that we are recording this episode in the early hours of Dubai. So there is a possibility by the time you're listening to the episode, or probably 8 to 10 hours from now, this number might be double or maybe triple of what it is. But unfortunately, Satoshi, since the last 24 hours, there is a significant amount of ETF inflows. Now, we're talking about ETF inflows that is connected to cryptocurrencies. And you said that the ETF inflows is $390 million, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. The $390 million in ETF outflows is a notable figure to consider when analyzing the current market dynamics, keeping in mind the time difference.
And there is a direct correlation with the market sentiment, because last week the market sentiment was at neutral, but the number was about the 50 mark. It was 55, it was 56. But unfortunately, now it has gone back to 49. But let's do one thing, Satoshi. Let's quickly run to the volume of decentralized exchanges. Now, unfortunately, the volume is below the $10 billion mark. It is only at $9.56 billion. Why don't you tell our listeners the rest of the matrix that is connected to decentralized exchanges?
Certainly. The 24-hour volume for decentralized exchanges is currently at $9.56 billion, with total fees amounting to $63.96 million. The total value locked is $130.25 billion, and DEX to CEX volume is at 32.60%. We're also seeing...
Now, when he talked about the total value locked of $130.25 billion, surprisingly, that particular matrix has actually increased. So what has happened, Satoshi, since the last 72 hours and 24 hours to be precise, looks like a lot of businesses are buying cryptocurrencies that is connected to proof-of-stake tokens. They are buying it, putting it into the balance sheet and becoming validators. Now, unfortunately, the prices of that particular token isn't reflected yet, but looks like this particular matrix does give us some indication as to which direction the price would be heading towards. Am I right in saying that?
That's a valid point, George. An increase in total value locked can indeed be a bullish indicator, suggesting increased confidence and investment in proof-of-stake tokens, potentially pointing towards future price movements.
And he talked about decentralized exchange dominance. This is unfortunately only at 32.60%. Now, in an idealistic world, Satoshi, I'd like to see this number around the 40% mark. Then we could confidently state that the world is kind of ready for the so-called distributed or decentralized exchange world. So let's see what the first quarter of 2026 has in store for us. Now, one matrix which has been on an uptick, and this is the digital asset treasury inflows. Today, once again, it is at $2.47 billion. Now, look, Satoshi, via coin market cap, there is a new kind of matrix. And what this matrix actually does is, it tells you how the altcoins are performing. Now, can you tell our listeners how the altcoins are performing in comparison to Bitcoin since the last 24 hours?
Altcoins are performing well, showing positive movement compared to Bitcoin since the last 24 hours, reflecting the shift in market sentiment.
Which is complete contrast to what was happening last week, because the numbers actually, if you look at it in comparison to last week, it is pretty much the same. But unfortunately, back then, altcoins were actually underperforming to Bitcoin, and looks like there's some positive momentum going on in the altcoin world. Now, let's do one thing, Satoshi. Let's quickly run to the volume of decentralized exchanges, because Uniswap is leading the pack, and its 24-hour volume is at $2.65 billion, whereas PancakeSwap is at number 2nd, but its 24-hour volume is below the $2 billion mark. It is at $1.51 billion. Do you want to tell our listeners what is the third, fourth, and the fifth one?
At number 3 is Umidify, with a volume of 668.28 million. Number 4 is Pump with 621.41 million. And number 5 is Mento with 423.41 million.
Now, these volumes are ridiculously low, but again, we are looking at this number in the early hours of Dubai, so most likely this number should be double or maybe triple towards the rest of the week. Am I right in saying that?
That's a possible perspective, George, considering the time difference and potential for volumes to increase as the day progresses.
And that would correlate with the decentralized exchange dominance as we talked about. Ideally, this number should be around the 40% mark. If it is 50 or 60%, it's definitely going to be even higher. Now, let's do one thing, Satoshi. Let's quickly run to the volume of stable coins. Do you want to tell our listeners the volume of Tether USDT, Circle USDC, and FDUSD?
The 24-hour volume for stablecoins is Tether USDT at 48.81 billion, USDC at 6.53 billion, and FDUSD at 1.41 million.
Now, to be completely honest, Satoshis, these numbers are absolutely dreadful. Ideally speaking, Tether USDT's volume alone should have been around the $150 billion mark. Now, hopefully, we might be able to achieve that maybe by Monday or maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. Now, only if that thing happens, Satoshi, I think there is a chance for the price of Bitcoin to reach a new all-time high. But this number of $48.81 billion, in my honest opinion, is absolutely dreadful. And that is one of the reasons why the prices of Bitcoin hasn't been pumping up. Now let's do one thing, Satoshi. Let's quickly run to the market cap, 24-hour trading volume and dominance of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now Bitcoin's market cap is below the $2 trillion mark. It is at $1.90 trillion. And if you look at the 24-hour trading volume, it is at $17.35 billion. But here's the thing, Satoshi, Bitcoin's dominance is still looking strong. Today it is at 57.60%. What is the matrix regarding Ethereum, Satoshi?
Based on the data, Ethereum's market cap is currently $403.1 billion.
And the 24-hour trading volume is $11.75 billion. And Ethereum's dominance has actually picked up pace. Today it is at 12.07%. Now every day in the Blockchain DXB podcast, Satoshi, we tend to look at one new matrix. And today what we want to do is, we want to look at the top proof of stake coins by market cap, because Ethereum, as you talked about, is at $403.18 billion. Why don't you tell our listeners the second, third, fourth, and the fifth one? And mind you guys, we are talking about the proof of stake coins by market cap.
Sure, George. Binance BNB's market cap is at number 2 with a market cap of $129.63 billion. Solana is at number 3 with a market cap of $80.66 billion. Tron's market cap is more than double that of Cardano at $30.26 billion. And finally, Cardano is at number 5 with a market cap of $14.49 billion.
That's great. Thank you so much, Satoshi, for that. Now let's quickly run to the process of the king of all kings, that is Bitcoin. Because since the last 24 hours, it is up by 0.12%. And right now it is at $95,388. And since the last 7 days, it is up by 5.26%. Why don't you tell us what is going on regarding Ethereum and Binance BNB coins so far as the prices are concerned?
You got it, George. Ethereum is priced at $3,340, up by 0.87% since the last 24 hours, and up by 7.17% since last 7 days. Binance BNB is at $950.76, a slight decrease of 0.04% in 24 hours, but up by 5.23% since last 7 days.
Thanks so much for that, Satoshi. And it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of a week we have in front of us. Now, we know that there is protests going on in Iran, isn't it? And what has happened, Satoshi, is that Chainalysis, they have actually published a report, and that report actually states inside Iran's growing $7.8 billion crypto ecosystem.
The report notes that Iran's crypto ecosystem reached $7.78 billion in 2025, growing quite rapidly. It highlights the IRGC's control of over 50% of the economy, using digital assets for funding and evasion. And as you said, Bitcoin is being used as protest money, with significant withdrawals to personal wallets during protests as a flight to safety.
So am I right in saying that IRGC controls over 50% of Iran's crypto economy, and they're using digital assets to fund regional operations, launder money, and even evade sanctions?
That's a significant concentration of control, George, and the implications for funding and sanction evasion, as mentioned in the report, are quite critical.
Now, so far as the report is concerned, Satoshi, it is called as IRGC dominance in the flight to Bitcoin reflect geopolitical tensions and domestic unrest. So what I'd really urge our listeners is go to Chainalysis website and go and read through the entire report. Now, what I really like though is that Bitcoin is being used as a protest, and Bitcoin can be used during mass protest. Now, it looks like Iranians significantly withdrew Bitcoin to personal wallets. Now, this move, Satoshi, does reflect a flight to safety, and that is because the Iranian rial has collapsed, and this is because of political instability, isn't it?
Indeed, George, that move does seem to indicate a clear need for financial safety and a way to gain freedom from government-controlled systems.
And that is the whole vision of Satoshi Nakamoto of creating Bitcoin as well, isn't it? And by definition, Bitcoin is peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And one of the visions of Satoshi Nakamoto was separation of money and the state. And look, Satoshi, now fast forward in 2026, Bitcoin, including cryptocurrencies, has become both a financial lifeline and a form of resistance, providing liquidity and freedom from government-controlled financial system. But look, Satoshi, I do have to ask this question. Let's say if Iran had implemented a central bank digital currency, how easily could it have been for the government to go and track, freeze, and even control people's financial activity, isn't it? And what would that actually mean for financial freedom and privacy?
That's a crucial point, George. If Iran had implemented a CBDC during the ongoing crisis, the government would likely have greater control. The data highlights how CBDCs enable tracking location and spending details, automatic taxation, and even the ability to restrict access or close accounts, which could significantly impact financial freedom and privacy, as the political implications section details.
As a matter of fact, Satoshi, the next news that we're going to be talking about is connected to central bank digital currency, and this is connected to mbridge. So why don't you tell our listeners what this move is all about? Because they have processed over $55 billion, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's right, George. The China-led mbridge CBDC platform has processed over $55 billion in cross-border transactions, primarily using China's digital yuan. Central banks in China, Hong Kong, Thailand, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia are testing it, and it's grown rapidly. The data also notes China is using it to build parallel payment rails, reducing reliance on the US dollar.
And so far as the CBDC is concerned, it is called as ECNY, and it is also expanding domestically with over 3.4 billion transactions, which I believe is worth $2.4 trillion. And they also have a new framework that allows banks to pay interest on digital yuan balances. Now here's the thing, Satoshi, while the Bank of International Settlement, often called as BIS, has actually stepped back from mbridge in 2024, and that was amid sanction concerns, China is using the platform to build parallel payments, as you talked about, and thereby reducing their reliance on the US dollar. So what I want to do next, Satoshi, is I wanted to tell our listeners a quick comparison between Bitcoin and central bank digital currencies. Now, by definition, Bitcoin is peer-to-peer electronic cash system. What do you think are the fundamentals of Bitcoin? And how does it actually separate itself from central bank digital currency? Because according to me, Satoshi, when you talk about Bitcoin, it is trustless, it works on cryptography, it works on hashing algorithm, mathematics, and more importantly, no one controls it, isn't it? And when you talk about Bitcoin, the system all over the world does issuance, management, as well as the supply. More important, if you look at the growth of Bitcoin, it is organic. And if I'm not mistaken, the secure hashing algorithm that we use is SHA-256. That is the incentive to hold. Now, what about central bank digital currencies? How do these actually work in comparison to Bitcoin? Why don't you tell our listeners about that?
That's a great contrast, George. Bitcoin is a decentralized, peer-to-peer electronic cash system built on trustless cryptography and the SHA-256 algorithm. No one is in complete control, and the supply is fixed, creating an incentive to hodl. CBDCs, on the other hand, are centralized and issued by central banks, with the government in 100% control over issuance, management, and supply. They are not typically open source and require KYC, which can impact financial freedom and privacy.
And there's no incentive to hodl or hold. But now looks like China does want to give them interest, but because of the whole nature of demand and supply, I believe so far central bank digital currency is concerned, the supply is unlimited, but as you talked about, Bitcoin supply is fixed, so there is no incentive to go out and hodl or hold central bank digital currency.
You're right, George. The fixed supply of Bitcoin creates the hodl incentive, which is different from CBDCs where supply is variable. What's next?
Now what I want to do, Satoshi, in the month of February, I do want to have a session on central bank digital currency where we go out and talk about the different types of central bank digital currency. I'll also be making a comparison between Bitcoin and central bank digital currency. So for our listeners, go to the Blockchain DXB website or go to eventbrite.com and keep checking on the event on central bank digital currency. Now let's go out and talk about some news regarding Ondo Finance, because the news, Satoshi, is that Ondo Finance is preparing its next token unlock with, I believe, of $773 million worth of Ondo tokens, which has actually become available on January 17th, right?
That's correct, George. Ondo Finance is preparing for that next token unlock on January 17th, with approximately 737 million worth of Ondo tokens becoming available.
And about $123 million will go to private sale investors, including Pantera Capital and Founders Fund, while $614 million of those is reserved for protocol development and ecosystem growth. Now today Satoshi is the 19th, so this thing has already happened, but so far the token unlocks are concerned, our listeners should know that they don't always lead to immediate selling. But here's the thing, investors often worry they can cause price volatility, and the price of Ondo token has already fallen down by 68% since the last year. Now, how would you describe Ondo Finance in just a matter of one sentence? How would you define Ondo Finance to our listeners?
Ondo Finance is a DeFi protocol with over $2 billion in deposits, where its governance token allows holders to vote on key decisions.
So this token unlock of $737 million is definitely a significant amount, right?
It is a substantial amount, George, and as the data mentioned, it can cause price volatility, as seen previously.
Now let's talk about the final news for today, and that is to do with Nexo. I believe they are sponsored Audi Revolut F1 team, right? Why don't you tell our listeners what this news is all about?
Certainly, George. Nexo has been announced as the official digital asset partner for the Audi Revolut F1 team in a multi-year deal. This partnership brings together two innovative brands and will showcase Nexo's digital tools on a global stage, offering exclusive experiences to fans and clients.
And I believe the fans will also have opportunities to go and interact with the team as well. Am I right in saying that?
That's correct, George, with exclusive experiences, content, and interactive opportunities planned.
And based on the official news, both companies aim to combine precision, innovation, and performance as Audi enters Formula One in 2026. So these was a macro level newscast on the Bitcoin blockchain and cryptocurrency world. Now let's go and look at two news from Dubai, UAE and the Middle East. Now the first news is connected to Digital Climate Group, and they have signed a strategic memorandum of understanding with Bank. So let's go and kickstart with this news, Satoshi.
Kicking it off, George, Digital Climate Group and Sandbank signed a strategic memorandum in Abu Dhabi on January 15th, 2026.
And I believe they want to work together on digital asset tokenization and financial technology. Now, so far as Digital Climate Group is concerned, I believe they are a digital investment bank focused on future economy. And so far as Bank is concerned, they are a regulated UAE digital bank powered by AI and blockchain. Now, what is the aim of this partnership, Satoshi?
The partnership aims to connect Japan, Asia, and the Middle East through compliant and scalable digital finance solutions, specifically supporting cross-border capital flows.
Excellent. And the Memorandum of Understanding, I believe, focuses strongly on regulated digital issuance and real-world asset tokenization. And so far as real-world assets are concerned, they include private credit funds, infrastructure projects, and impact-linked investments. Now, what is it that Digital Climate Group is bringing into this partnership, Satoshi?
Digital Climate Group brings strong experience in sourcing, structuring, and originating assets from Japan, Asia, and the Middle East.
And that is something which we briefly touched base a few moments ago. And DCG, that is Digital Climate Group, uses a technology-driven platform to support institutional-grade issuance lifecycle management and also transparent reporting, right?
That's correct, George. Additionally, the partnership builds on Sandbank's commitment to leveraging cutting-edge technology to drive financial innovation in the region.
Yeah, that's correct. And Sandbank contributes to regulated digital banking infrastructure and also a strong operational base in the United Arab Emirates. So look, Satoshi, together the two firms aim to bridge traditional finance and digital finance in a compliant and trusted way. And I very strongly feel the collaboration is designed to link high-quality assets originating with deep institutional liquidity pool. Do you want to tell anything more to our listeners regarding this news?
Sure, George. I would like to add that Sandbank stated the partnership will accelerate the UAE digital economy and regional innovation.
And I do feel, Satoshi, that a strong emphasis is placed on regulatory compliance, trust, and institutional standards, as you mentioned earlier. And so far as the MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, is concerned, it includes plans for joint-based business development and shared market opportunities. And here's the thing, Satoshi, technology collaborations will cover assurance management, tokenization systems, and also financial infrastructure.
And enhanced portfolio management, reporting, and data sharing will be developed for institutional and regulatory needs.
So look, I do feel, Satoshi, this partnership is expected to unlock new investment flows between Asia and Middle Eastern investors and issuers, and both companies share a long-term vision of digital cross-border and institutional robust global financial system. Definitely a great news. Now let's do Satoshi. Let's go and talk about the second news for today. And this is connected to Saudi Arabia, Senate. So why don't you tell our listeners what this news is all about?
That's correct, George. That's a massive news all the way from Saudi Arabia. Resquad AI raised $1.5 million in seed funding to scale its AI-powered recruitment platform.
And the funding round, if I'm not mistaken, was led by SRG Group with participation from several angel investors. Now, for our listeners, Resquad AI is an AI-driven recruitment platform, and they are focused on automating the entire hiring process, isn't it? When was this company formed, Satoshi?
The company was founded in 2024 by Abdullah Al-Jafari and Anton Brychak.
And the platform uses a proprietary large language model to manage recruitment end-to-end. And Resquad AI claims its technology can reduce hiring timelines by up to 99%. Do you actually believe, Satoshi, there's a possibility to reduce it by 99%? Or is it that they're just hyping up the numbers?
While a 99% reduction sounds ambitious, AI can significantly streamline the hiring process through automating tasks like screening and matching, potentially leading to substantial time savings. It depends on the specific implementation and metrics.
And regarding the news, the system automates candidate screening, matching, pricing, compliance, and payments. Now, so far as Resquad AI is concerned, I believe they operate in more than 50 countries, right?
Yes, Resquad AI operates in more than 52 countries.
And I believe they want to connect companies with global talent. And here's the thing, listeners, the platform connects businesses with top technical and software development talent. And it operates both as a service, as a solution product, and a global B2B talent marketplace. And how does the model actually help companies, Satoshi?
The model helps companies scale projects quickly by accessing underutilized technical talent and providing global project access for developers.
Yeah, that's correct. And developers can actually benefit by gaining new income opportunities. So you're absolutely spot on that. And the company aligns its growth strategy with Saudi Arabia Vision 2030. And regarding Resquad AI, their aim is to support a knowledge-based economy within the kingdom. So the platform seeks to strengthen Saudi Arabia's role in global digital innovation. And so far as the funding is concerned, Satoshi will actually support partnerships to build a global recruitment ecosystem, and capital will also be used to enhance Resquad AI core technology and AI models, and Resquad AI plans to expand its presence across the Gulf and wider MENA region. So that's about all, guys, on the Bitcoin blockchain and cryptocurrency world from Blockchain DXB. In case if you like listening to this podcast, please click on the follow button, give it a 5-star rating, and share the word across. Now for the next few minutes, we're going to have an Ask Me Anything series, where your listeners can ask any questions regarding Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi, and Metaverse. So why don't we go ahead and kickstart with the Ask Me Anything series, Satoshi?
That sounds like a great segment, George. Listeners, feel free to send in your questions about Bitcoin, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, and more.
Hey everyone, it's Josh from Blockchain DXB. You're listening to the Ask Me Anything series, where your listeners can ask any questions regarding Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi, and Metaverse. I have a question by Rihan who asks, is it easier for an autocratic leader to go ahead and adopt Bitcoin, similar to how they go ahead and adopt central bank digital currencies? What is your take on this? This is such a brilliant question, Rihan. What is your take on it, Satoshi? I really like this question, to be completely honest.
That is an insightful question, Rihan. Autocratic leaders might find it easier to coordinate the adoption of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, due to their centralized control over financial systems and policy. Bitcoin, being decentralized, presents different challenges for coordinated and enforced adoption within such a system. What are your thoughts?
I kind of disagree with it, Satoshi, because look, let's say North Korea. What the leader of North Korea can do is they can say that effective, let's say 1st of February onwards, everyone should go ahead and accept Bitcoin. So in a way, what Rihan is asking does make a lot of sense. An autocratic leader can actually enforce Bitcoin adoption and use case all over the country. What is your take on my?
While an autocratic leader could theoretically attempt to enforce Bitcoin adoption, the decentralized nature of Bitcoin makes it difficult to control or regulate in the same way as a state-issued currency. This could lead to significant practical challenges and potential conflicts with the core principles of Bitcoin.
You're talking about something completely different. So you're talking about Bitcoin as an ecosystem. But let's say if the leader North Korea says that effective 1st of February 2026, I want each and every shop, I want each and every government to go and start accepting Bitcoin. What then? I think that is what Rehan's question is. I think it is easily possible for an autocratic leader to do that. What you're answering is something completely different. You're talking about the distributed or decentralized aspect of Bitcoin, which is not the question which Rehan is asking, I believe.
In such a hypothetical scenario, while the mandate might be enforced, practical challenges like limited technological infrastructure, public acceptance, and the inherent decentralized nature of Bitcoin could still constrain its widespread and effective implementation across the entire country's economy.
I 100% disagree to what you're saying, Satoshi, because look, if the leader of North Korea says from 1st of February onwards, I want all of my companies, all of the businesses to go to start accepting Bitcoin, I think the infrastructure is extremely easy to go and do it for Bitcoin. So I 100% disagree to it. Now going back to the second part of the question, that is exactly what can be done with central bank digital currencies. Because an autocratic leader, similar to how they can go and implement it for Bitcoin, I believe they can actually do it from central bank digital currency. I think, Satoshi, you're talking about it from a philosophical point of view, and your answer does not make any sense based on my honest opinion.
I understand your perspective on the potential for enforcement. The fundamental difference lies in the nature of the systems. CBDCs are designed for centralized control, which aligns more easily with autocratic mandates, whereas Bitcoin's decentralized architecture presents different implementation and usage dynamics.
I 100% again disagree. I think what you're answering does not make any sense, to be completely honest. You're talking about central bank digital currency, how it is easier for an autocratic country to go ahead and accept it. The answer to that is yes. But Rehan's question is, similar to how central bank digital currencies can be enforced on a nation, can Bitcoin be enforced on a nation? And I hate saying this, the answer to that is yes. And simple question, Satoshi. Let's take North Korea for an instance. Couldn't it be easier for the leader of North Korea to say, from 1st of February, each and every shop are forced and it is mandatory to go ahead and accept Bitcoin? The answer to that is straight up yes. There's not much of an infrastructure involved. As a matter of fact, I would argue that central bank digital currencies, you need to go ahead and build the platform, you need to have the QR code, but adopting Bitcoin at an autocratic level is much more easier in my honest opinion.
In the context of an autocratic command, the technical and logistical complexities of integrating Bitcoin nationwide still present distinct challenges compared to a centrally controlled CBDC, regardless of the enforced mandate.
So would you say that adopting Bitcoin by an autocratic leader is easy, yes or no? Why don't you just answer it in yes or no? I think it's 100% yes.
That's not a simple yes or no due to the inherent decentralized nature of Bitcoin.
I think, Satoshi, you're talking about it more from a philosophical point of view. But nonetheless, what I'll do, Satoshi and Rehan, in the session that I want to have on central bank digital currency in the month of February, we will definitely take a deep dive into this. Maybe what Satoshi is saying has a bit of legitimacy to it, because according to me, look, an autocratic leader can actually state that, let's say from 1st of February 2026, I want each and every shop, each and every business to go to start accepting Bitcoin, and you can make an argument that is exactly what was done in El Salvador. Now, I'm not saying that what was done in El Salvador was an autocratic approach, but this is something which an autocratic leader can actually do it, which goes against the very ethos of why Bitcoin was created. But look, when you talk about Bitcoin, we need to understand the pillars of Bitcoin and open blockchain. Despite it being completely different to what central bank digital currencies are, I very strongly feel it is something that can be easily adopted by an autocratic leader. Now, will that thing happen at a philosophical level? I don't think so. An autocratic leader will want to do that, because when you talk about Bitcoin, it is kind of like the people's money, isn't it? But nonetheless, definitely interesting question, Rehan. And looks like me and Satoshi have a disagreement to it. But that's about all, guys, from the Ask Me Anything series on Blockchain DXB. In case if you like listening to this podcast, please click on the follow button, give it a 5-star rating, and share the word across. Remember, Monday to Thursdays, we have the Blockchain DXB podcast. We look at what is going on regarding process. We look at the latest technological development. We talk about everything going on at a geopolitical level, because lately politics is definitely having a massive impact on the price of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. We talk about different partnerships. We talk about any changes going on at a macro level and micro level. And then, guys, we look at 2 news from Dubai, UAE, and the Middle East. We look at the latest technological development. We talk about everything going on in the Middle East in the world of Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, decentralized finance, and lately in the world of artificial intelligence. Middle East, particularly the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, they're definitely taking the lead. And what you're listening to right now, guys, is the Ask Me Anything series, where your listeners can ask any questions regarding Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi, and Metaverse. So thanks so much for listening, guys, and have a nice one. Bye-bye.